In this video, I'm going to discuss a topic in income taxation entitled Income Taxation Schemes. Under the National Internal Revenue Code, merong tatlong income taxation schemes. At yung tatlong income taxation schemes na yan ay final income taxation, capital gains taxation, and regular income taxation. I already discussed that an item of gross income is a taxable item of income. Ngayon, ang tanong, kung ang item of gross income ay taxable, saan siya taxable? Taxable siya under any one of the income taxation schemes. Meaning to say, ang item of gross income is taxable to any one of final income taxation, capital gains taxation, or regular income taxation. Ang ibig sabihin nun ay ang item of gross income ay pwedeng taxable sa final income taxation. Ang item of gross income ay pwedeng taxable sa capital gains taxation, or yung item of gross income natin ay pwedeng taxable under regular income taxation. But take note of the following. Kung ang item of gross income ay taxable na sa isang scheme, hindi na dapat siya taxable sa ibang scheme. For example, yung item of gross income natin is taxable under final income taxation. Since taxable na siya under final income taxation, hindi na dapat siya taxable under capital gains taxation or regular income taxation. Kung yung item of gross income ay taxable under capital gains taxation, hindi na dapat siya taxable under final income taxation or regular income taxation. Kung ang item of gross income ay taxable under regular income taxation, hindi na dapat siya taxable under capital gains taxation or final income taxation. Aside from that, kung exempt yung item of income natin under one scheme, hindi na dapat siya taxable under the other schemes. For example, exempt siya under final income taxation. That means hindi na dapat siya taxable under capital gains taxation or regular income taxation. Kung exempt siya under capital gains taxation, hindi dapat siya taxable under final income taxation or regular income taxation. At kung exempt siya under regular income taxation, hindi na dapat siya taxable under final income taxation or capital gains taxation. Since we have three income taxation schemes under the National Internal Revenue Code, items of gross income can be classified into gross income subject to final tax, gross income subject to capital gains tax, and gross income subject to regular tax. Gross income subject to final tax is basically the gross income which is taxable under the final income taxation. Gross income subject to capital gains tax is basically the gross income which is taxable under the capital gains taxation, and gross income subject to regular tax is basically the gross income which is taxable under the regular income taxation. I will discuss the income taxation schemes one by one. I will start with final income taxation. Under the final income taxation, The recipient of the income receives the income net of tax. Pag sinabi nating net of tax, na ibawas na yung tax or na-deduct na yung tax. Meaning to say, doon sa income na na-receive ng recipient, na ibawas na doon yung tax. Ang tawag doon sa nag-deduct or nagbawas ng tax ay payor. At si payor ngayon ang magre-remit ng tax sa government. Since the recipient receives the income net of tax and the payor will remit the tax to the government, the recipient of the income does not need to file income tax return. So under the final income taxation, hindi na kailangang mag-file ng income tax return yung recipient of the income. Income tax return is basically a return filed by the taxpayer to the government para malaman ng government kung ilan ba yung income ng taxpayer, ilan ang kanyang expenses, at ilan ang kanyang babayaran na tax sa government. Final income taxation or final taxation is applicable only on certain passive income listed by the law. Not all items of passive income are subject to final tax. So that means hindi lahat ng passive income ay subject sa final tax. Kasi yung mga ibang passive income, subject sila sa regular income tax or regular tax. Let's differentiate passive income from active income. When we say passive income, this is an income earned with very minimal or even without active involvement of the taxpayer in the earning process. Meaning to say, effortless yung pag-earn ng income, or kung meron mang effort, very minimal. An example of passive income is the interest income from banks. Let's say, nag-deposit ka sa bangko. Yung dineposit mo sa bangko, mag-earn yan ng interest as time goes by. Doon sa pag-deposit mo sa bangko, wala ka namang masyadong ginawa, wala ka namang masyadong ginawang effort, naghintay ka lang naman, so that will be considered as a passive income. Another example is dividends from domestic corporations. Kapag sinabi nating dividends, any distribution yan na binibigay ng corporation sa shareholders, whether in the form of money or in other property. This is also considered as a passive income kasi wala namang masyadong ginagawa ang shareholder sa pag-receive ng dividends. Aside from that, another example of passive income is royalties or royalty. Ang common source ng royalty ay sa books, literary works, at sa musical compositions. Pwede rin naman sa franchise. Royalty yung tawag dun sa binabayad ng franchisee sa franchisor in a franchise agreement. Those are just the typical examples of royalties. On the other hand, active income is an income with a considerable degree of effort or undertaking from the taxpayer. Compensation income is basically an income received by the employee under an employer-employee relationship. In other words, ang compensation income is yung income mo from employment. Now, paano ba nagkakaroon ng employer-employee relationship? Para magkaroon ng employer-employee relationship, dapat meron lahat nito. Una, selection and engagement of employees. Sa pag-hire ng employees, dapat magkaroon ng screening process. For example, in the application of the position of instructor, ano-ano yung mga screening process or ano-ano yung gagawin ng employer sa kanyang employee. Unang-una, dapat mag-conduct siya ng demo. Aside from that, the applicant should go through interview, either first interview or final interview or both first interview and final interview. Pangalawa, payment of wages. That means papasahurin ng employer ang kanyang employees. Pangatlo, there should be a power of dismissal. For example, yung isang business or si employer, meron siyang power para i-retrench yung kanyang employees pag nagkaroon na siya ng heavy losses, lugi na or bankrupt. Or si employer, meron din siyang power to terminate the employees or to fire the employees under reasonable basis, of course. At dapat merong power of control. The employer has power to control the employee on the means and methods by which the work is accomplished. Aside from compensation income, an example of active income is business income. Kung ikaw ay merong business, yung income na madiderive mo sa pag-conduct ng business ay business income. And this income requires a considerable degree of effort or undertaking from the business owner. And aside from that, we also have professional income. Professional income is an income derived from exercising your profession. Let's say, for example, you are a certified public accountant. If you are exercising your profession as an accountant and you receive an income from exercising your profession, that income is called as professional income. And since sa pag-exercise mo ng profession mo, nagkaroon ka ng considerable degree of undertaking or active involvement, that means your professional income is considered as active or regular income. Let's proceed to the second income taxation scheme, capital gains taxation. Capital gains tax is imposed on the gain realized on the sale, exchange, and other dispositions of certain capital assets. Take note, ang dapat mabenta, ma-exchange, or ma-dispose ay capital assets. So it is very important for you to know the difference between capital assets and ordinary assets. Ordinary assets are assets used in the business, trade, or profession. Basically, ordinary assets are assets held for sale and assets held for use. Ano ba yung mga assets na held for sale? Ang tawag doon ay inventory. At yung assets held for use natin ay yung mga supplies at property, plant, and equipment. On the other hand, capital assets are assets other than ordinary assets. Kung mapapansin ninyo, this is a residual definition. Kung hindi siya magpo-fall as ordinary assets, mapapabilang siya dun sa capital assets. Basically, capital assets are personal assets of individual taxpayers. Ang personal assets ng individual taxpayers ay capital assets kasi itong assets na to ay hindi ginagamit sa business, trade, or profession. Aside from personal assets of individual taxpayers, capital assets are business assets of any taxpayers which are financial assets and intangible assets. Ano ba yung examples ng financial assets? We have cash, receivables, prepaid expenses, and investments. Examples of intangible assets are patent, copyright, leasehold rights, and franchise rights. Just like the passive income, not all capital gains are subject to capital gains tax. Most of them are subject to regular income tax. Under the capital gains taxation, the taxpayer still files capital gains tax returns to report the gain and pay the tax to the government. Capital gains taxation applies only to two types of capital assets. We have domestic stocks and real property. Let's proceed to the third income taxation scheme, the regular income taxation. The regular income tax is the general rule in income taxation. It is the general rule in income taxation because it covers all other income such as active income and other income. Other income includes gains from dealings in properties not subject to capital gains tax and other passive income not subject to final tax. Meaning to say, tinawag na general rule in income taxation ang regular income tax kasi hindi lang active income ang kanyang coverage. It also covers some capital gains and some passive income. Remember, sinabi ko kanina na hindi lahat ng passive income ay subject sa final tax. At hindi lahat ng capital gains ay subject sa capital gains tax. Other passive income and capital gains are subject to the regular income tax. Items of gross income from these sources are valued or measured using an accounting method, accumulated over an accounting period, and reported to the government through an income tax return. Meaning to say, under the regular income taxation, the taxpayer has to file an income tax return. This is one difference from regular or between regular income taxation and final income taxation. Kasi sa final income taxation, hindi na kailangang mag-file ng income tax return. Pero sa regular income taxation, the taxpayer is required to file an income tax return.